Gary G. Bless Brown, and I'm the creator of the board game Chips and Dips. And this is a tutorial on how to play the game. So if you've purchased the game and you're ready to enjoy the fun of competition, here we go. Take one, Chips and Dips. Okay, Chips and Dips fan, this is the actual setup for the game on the board, the starting position. You have 12 chips on this side, and you have 12 dips on this side. Now, it doesn't matter who goes first. You can flip a coin. You can just say you go first if you want to. Now, the objective of the game is for me to get one of my pieces to my opponent's last and back row. The last and final row. If I get one of my pieces to this back row, I have won the game. The game is over. Alright players, Chips and Dips fans, it's time for phase 2 of the game. Phase 2 is all about movements. In phase 1, you learn board setup, and you learn that the objective is to get one of your pieces to your opponent's back row. Now for part 2, phase 2. Phase 2 is all about movements. And in your movements, you can move your piece forward, and then it is your opponent's turn. There's also the move of moving to the left or moving to the right. On your turn, you can move to the left, or you can move to the right, or you can move forward. You cannot move back in the game of Chips and Dips at all, nor can you hop back in the game of Chips and Dips. You cannot move diagonal in the game of Chips and Dips, thus the black space. The next thing that's very important for you to know in this game is there are 2 lanes in the game, the G lanes on either side. You cannot move into the G lanes, you must jump, performing a maneuver called the gorilla, which will be further explained later on in the game. Okay, Chips and Dips fans, I spoke to you earlier about the 2 G lanes on the end and about how to enter them. You have to perform a maneuver called the gorilla in order to enter the G lanes, and the gorilla is just simply sacrificing one of your pieces so that you can get into the G lane, which gives you a direct free shot down to your opponent's back row. Now, if I wanted to, if you look at the setup on the board, if I wanted to get into the G lane from this point on and it was the chip's turn, what I would do is I would push this piece here and allow him to jump here. Or let's say the setup was a little different. Let's say the setup looked more like this. And I wanted my piece to enter the G lane. What I would do is I would push him here and he would jump my piece. Once my piece is captured and put in the holding cell, I would then, having my piece backed up, jump here into the G lane for a completion of the move called the gorilla. Now I have a free shot into my opponent's back row. But now understand that in this back row, there is something called the G lane pool. Once you enter the G lane, you cannot come out of the G lane. But now, let's say my opponent wants to stop me, and I get here, or just moving up the G lane board, just moving up the G lane anyway, and he wants to stop me. What he would do is a G lane pull. I would take this piece and move it over and snatch the piece out, because in this game, you're forced to take your jumps. So he forced him out of the G lane. So that's called the G lane pull. The maneuver to get into the G lane, no matter how it happens, is always going to be called the gorilla. The move to pull a piece out is always going to be called a G lane pull. Alright, Chips and Dips fans, it's time for phase 3 of the game. Learning how to jump, or learning how to take hops in the game. Not just a regular hop, but multiple hops. Let's take a look at a multiple hop. Here is going to be the gold's turn, the chips. And the dips have set themselves up really bad because there's a lot of blank spaces in between. Now, it doesn't matter which way you choose to jump, but you just have to take your jump. So in this, I'm going to make this maneuver here and force this other side to jump me here. Once he jumps and moves my piece into the cell, the capture zone, the cell, I have a decision to make. I can take my piece. I have several jumps, so I can take my piece and jump here and here, and then allow him to jump me twice back here. But I don't want to do that because I don't want to give up pieces. So I'm going to take my piece and I'm going to jump him 1, 2, 3, 4 times on the board. And I have taken 4 of his pieces. That is a multiple hop. And I think it was well explained. Now, for just a regular hop on the board, he would move here. There's a jump. Move the piece to the cell. And there's a jump. It wasn't a double hop. It was just a regular hop. Now, the first hop was a multiple hop. The same setup, the same build as checkers. Okay, Chips and Dips fans. Now we have a chip on the other side of the board, and it looks like he's on his way to the opponent's back row. So, the blue dips have a choice to make. And the blue dips decide that they don't want that piece to get to the back row, so he sacrifices 2 pieces in order to do this. He pulls them apart, and a double jump has just taken place. Now, please understand that in the game of Chips and Dips, if a jump is presented to you, you must take the jump. All right, and this is the last phase of the game, guys. Chips and Dips fans out there. All right, there is no double dipping in Chips and Dips. And what I mean by double dipping is you cannot move into the opponent's back row and be threatened by a jump. So, what I want to explain to you is, this is not a win. If you see this on the board, this is not a win. Let's say the chips are set up here, and that dip is set up there. And the chip is pushed out, and the dip, it jumps into the winning lane. It's not a win because he jumped into a threat, meaning the next move is to jump him. This is called double dipping on the board when you see this. Just because he entered the opponent's back row, whether he pushed in here or whether he jumped in, does not constitute a win unless he's clear of any threat. So in order for him to have won this game, that piece couldn't have been there, because that piece threatens his survival after he enters the back row. You will also see this and find this maneuver or move when coming down into the G lane, because most people will set you up. They'll see you coming down into their lane and push a piece out here. So your next move, you'll push in. Their next move, they'll move something else, and you'll have to jump. The game is not over when you move into the G lane or you move into the last row into a jump. When you move into a jump, the game does not exist. In order for you to win this game, that piece would have had to been here.
Free and clear.
Free and clear.